Liberty, equality, fraternity. The world centre for art and culture, home to many famous landmarks such as the Eiffel Tower, the Louvre, Notre Dame and the Palace of Versailles. Its capital city is the world capital of fashion. It has more tourists than any other country in the entire world and has more stereotypes than I could possibly fit into this video. Of course, I'm talking about France, officially the French Republic. But where exactly is France? Now this may sound like a silly question. Obviously this is France right here. And while this is correct, it's not entirely correct. Saying this is France is a bit like saying this is the United States. While this is by far the most recognisable part of the country, this is only 48 of the 50 states. There's also Alaska and Hawaii. And while the USA is divided up into states, France is divided up into regions, which are further subdivided into departments. And this is only 12 of the 18 regions of France. The 13th is pretty close by, the island of Corsica. Although technically it's referred to as a territorial collectivity, it has some special status within the Republic, but in virtually every way it's the exact same as all the other regions. These 12 mainland regions plus the island of Corsica make up what's known as Metropolitan France. Metropolitan France makes up 82% of the land and 96% of the population of France. To find the 5 remaining regions, we need to go outside of Europe. First, we head across the Atlantic to the Caribbean and the region of Guadeloupe. The region is made up of 2 mainland islands, Basse-Terre and Grande-Terre. The islands were annexed in 1674 and became an overseas department in 1946. Guadeloupe is unique in that it actually has its own dependencies, Île-de-Saint, Marie-Galante and La Désirade. Any of these dependencies have the option of upgrading to an overseas collectivity at any point if they so choose, and that's exactly what happened with St. Barthélemy and St. Martin, former dependencies that became their own overseas collectivities in 2007. But more on them later. The next overseas department is also in the Caribbean, Martinique. The island was first colonised by the French back in the 17th century, despite resistance from the indigenous people already inhabiting the island. The island came under British occupation several times throughout its history, but sovereignty was transferred back to France at the conclusion of the Napoleonic Wars in 1815 and has been a French possession ever since, becoming an overseas department in 1946. Moving a little bit further south with the third overseas region to South America, where we find the largest of the overseas regions, French Guiana. The general area of South America is known as the Guianas, and during the colonial times there were 5 Guianas: Spanish, British, Dutch, French and Portuguese Guiana. Spanish Guiana became part of Venezuela, British Guiana became the independent country of Guyana, Dutch Guiana became the independent country of Suriname, French Guiana stayed French Guiana but was upgraded from a colony to an overseas region, and Portuguese Guiana became part of Brazil. French Guiana is by far the largest of all the departments of France. At more than 83,000 square kilometres, it is larger than 82 independent countries. For the next 2 overseas regions, we need to travel to a completely different part of the world, the Indian Ocean, just off the coast of Madagascar. About 700 kilometres east of Madagascar is the island of Réunion. About 40% of the island is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and a national park. Réunion is the most populous of the overseas regions, with about 850,000 people. Its population is higher than that of 41 independent countries. And finally, the smallest and least populous of the French regions, Mayotte, 300 kilometres west of Madagascar and geographically part of the Comoro Islands. In fact, the country of Comoros still claims the island of Mayotte, but the island overwhelmingly voted in favour of remaining part of the French Republic when Comoros became an independent country in 1975. The other 3 islands voted for independence. So, there are 5 overseas regions of France, all of which are also overseas departments of France, as all of the regions are made up of just one single department. All of which are an integral part of the country of France. This means they're not just territories that are French, they are literally part of the country. This means that all of these regions, despite not being in Europe, are part of the European Union. They're also part of the Eurozone, meaning the euro is their legal tender. However, unlike mainland France, they are not part of the Schengen area. So that's France. Mainland France, plus the island of Corsica, which make up metropolitan France, plus the 5 overseas regions and departments. But we're not quite done yet. While this is the French Republic, the country of France, there is still more French land in the world. Quite a lot, actually. France has what's known as overseas collectivities, technically not part of the country of France but under French sovereignty, all of which have varying degrees of autonomy. Let's start with French Polynesia in the South Pacific. French Polynesia is quite unique in that it is sometimes referred to as an overseas country and even has its own president, having a special status within the Republic. The most well-known part of French Polynesia is the island of Tahiti, the largest and most populous island. So much so, in fact, that the official tourism website refers to all of French Polynesia as the Islands of Tahiti. As well as Tahiti, there's also the popular tourist destination of Bora Bora, the romantic island known for its aquacentric luxury resorts. French Polynesia is thought to be one of the last places on Earth to be settled by humans. The islands were annexed by France in 1880, at the time known as French establishments in Oceania. Going back to the Caribbean now and the previously mentioned Saint Barthélemy and Saint Martin. Like I said, they both used to be part of the dependencies of the overseas region of Guadeloupe, but broke away and became their own overseas collectivities in 2007. Saint Barthélemy was actually a Swedish colony for nearly a century, but was later sold to France in 1878. The Swedish influence can still be seen today on the island's coat of arms, depicting the three crowns from Sweden's own coat of arms. Saint Martin, the French overseas collectivity, makes up about 60% of the island of Saint Martin, the other 40% being one of the 4 constituent countries of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, also called Saint Martin. The island only has one airport on the Dutch side and is well known on YouTube for its extremely low flying planes as they land. Several viral videos show planes landing extremely close to the tourists on the beach below due to the short runway. Next we move on to Saint Pierre and Miquelon, the only remnant of the former colonial empire of New France that remains under French control. New France was the colonial efforts of the French Empire in North America. However, New France was ceded to the British and the Spanish in the Treaty of Paris in 1763. Spain later returned the French land in 1800, but was then later sold to the United States in 1803 in the Louisiana Purchase. So Saint Pierre and Miquelon is the last remaining part of French land in North America, a French overseas collectivity. However, the archipelago has gone through several political changes in the last 70 years. The fifth and final overseas collectivity, like French Polynesia, is also in Oceania, Wallis and Futuna. As well as having its own local government, it also has 3 kings. The collectivity is divided into what used to be the 3 traditional Polynesian kingdoms before the islands were annexed by France in 1917. But as well as these overseas collectivities, staying in Oceania, there's also New Caledonia, which is unique within the Republic. It's referred to as a special collectivity and has its own section within the French Constitution. Like French Polynesia, it's sometimes referred to as an overseas country. New Caledonia also has its own president. Back in 1987, there was a failed independence referendum with only 1.7% of the population voting in favour. However, another referendum is due to take place at some point before the year 2018. New Caledonia, along with Wallis and Futuna and French Polynesia, are not part of the Eurozone and actually have their own currency, the CFP franc. The rest of the collectivities use the euro. We're pretty much finished now, but there are still 2 entities that are worth mentioning. The French Southern and Antarctic lands, which are referred to as a territorial collectivity made up of various islands in the southern Indian Ocean, as well as France's claims to Antarctica. None of the islands have a permanent population, and due to the Antarctica Treaty of 1961, French claims on the continent are not recognised as sovereign. Finally, there's Clipperton Island, officially referred to as an overseas minor territory, located about 1,000 kilometers southwest of Mexico. This tiny 6 kilometer square island is completely uninhabited. So, to sum up, there's mainland France, which, together with the island of Corsica, make up metropolitan France, as opposed to overseas France, the 5 overseas regions and departments, which together with metropolitan France make up the actual country of France. Then there's 5 overseas collectivities, 1 special collectivity, 1 overseas territorial collectivity, and 1 overseas minor territory. All French.